Thank you all for coming in. The Columbian is pleased to welcome candidates for Clark County Councilor from District 4. We have left to right Roman Battan, Eileen Quiring, and Jennifer McDaniel. Thank you for coming in. And just to clarify, this is for the seat that's being vacated by Tom Milkey, who is retired.
Correct.
Let's see, I'm Greg Jane, the editorial page editor here. I believe you met the other editorial board members. And reporter Caitlin Gillespie is sitting in on this. She won't be asking questions here, but might want to speak to you afterwards. And lastly, we are videotaping this. We videotape all of our editorial board meetings and post them unedited on the web for the benefit of our readers. So we'll start with introductions. Take 1 to 2 minutes to give us a little background about yourself and explain why you're running for this position. And we'll start with Roman.
Sure, my name's Roman Battan. I born and raised in Camas, Washougal area. Been there for 35 years. I own a little software company out there on that side of town. Before that, I ran for county council back in 2012. After I left there, I managed the state of Oregon for a couple different companies. Ran a book of business of about $29 million. Recently split off there, started my own company. Kind of had that on the side for a while, got my own company moving forward, and decided to get back involved and see how we can help the community. The reason I'm running is pretty simple. I believe in the idea of good governance. I believe that we should streamline our operations. I think we need to prioritize the way that we spend money, and I think we can help improve some accountability for folks on that side of the county.
Great, thank you. Eileen?
Eileen Quiring, as you said. I actually spent a lot of my growing up years here in Clark County. I graduated from Battleground High School, in fact, but moved away and gained some experience while I was away. I've served in the Oregon legislature, both the House and the Senate. That was 1994 through 2001. I've owned my own small business, employing about 8 people, and it was a service-oriented business, and it was a storefront, so I did have to have the space, lease the space. It wasn't from my home or garage or anything like that. After my stint in the legislature, I was also the founding executive director of the Robert D. Randall and Marcia H. Randall Charitable Trust, for which the Randall Children's Hospital is named. I've worked both in the public and the private sector, and so I have a view of the inside a little bit as an employee of the public sector. So I think that changes in any governmental agency need to come from the top, even though management and those inside and bureaucrats can add to that. It really does need to come top down, so that they're encouraged to take steps. And when I did work in the public sector, I did try to improve. Things like quality circles, I don't know if you're familiar with those. It was a while ago, but I was a part of that when I worked for the city of Charlotte. I lived in North Carolina for about 8 years and worked for them. Then I also worked in the public sector here as a assessment appraiser in Clark County. I too think I love this county. I moved back in 2009, and I'm running because I actually was appointed to the Planning Commission in 2012. I've become more acquainted with county government from that, and I believe completely, whether it's in state government, county government, city government, anything, that we need to streamline and do things as efficiently as possible. And I also think that our responsibility as representatives is to listen to people, to hear their complaints or their issues, and try to do for them as much as we can, because we are their representatives. It's the only way that they can do that. I also think that we need to beef up our public safety so that our county is up to par with where it has been in the past. So those are some of the issues that I would like to tackle.
Thank you. And Jennifer?
Hi, I'm Jennifer McDaniel. I currently serve on the Washougal City Council, and I ran in 2007, and I've run twice since then and been re-elected. My family and I moved up here in 2005 from Houston, Texas, and so that's where I'm from originally. And I worked 8 years as a parish administrator for my church, St. Anne's Episcopal Church in Washougal. I was a primary caregiver for my mother-in-law with dementia for 2.5 years, so that kept me busy. Currently working for Edward Jones as a branch office administrator, and I'm a University of Houston grad with a background in hotel and restaurant management with a Bachelor of Science. And I worked, that's my background, sales manager in the hotel and restaurant industry before we moved up here in 2005. As far as what I've done for my community, I jumped right in right after I was elected, and I have been involved in many different organizations and groups in my community. I volunteer for the Washougal Schools Foundation. I'm vice president and past president, as well as the Girl Scouts of America. I led my daughter's troop from kindergarten through 5th grade. I'm also involved in Unite Washougal Community Coalition, which is a group of people who are fighting against drug abuse for our children in schools. And as far as issues that I would like to tackle, I think I'm very, very concerned as a citizen and as a Washougal council member about representation. I just don't feel like we have effective representation for District 4, and I would like to see that improved greatly. I bring my many years of experience and my ability to collaborate with my colleagues to get things done. Thanks.
Right. Thank you. We'll move on to some specific issues, and there obviously are many we could tackle regarding the county. Let's start with discussion about the fee waiver that the county has implemented the past couple of years, waiving fees for development. What are your thoughts on that? How would you approach that? And we'll start with Ron.
Sure. I'm not necessarily for the fee waiver. I think that, here in Clark County as of January, we had 3.8% growth in our jobs. 5,600 jobs added to this community. Which I think is pretty significant. That's twice the national average. So we've got a very good, solid base of population here to support businesses. I think that we actually shouldn't be doing specific cutouts for businesses and trying to pick and choose which ones we want. I think if our fees are too high, we kind of need to evaluate that overall at the county, maybe make those adjustments at that particular level. But I think that overall, we need to make a community that's a bit more conducive to widening that base. We're saying that we've done this fee waiver and it's done something for the community, but we haven't actually had any studies come out about that, at least that I've seen at this point, that say that these fee waivers are effectively generating business here in the county. So I'd like to see us take a look and reevaluate and maybe see some studies on that if they have that information at the county, which I've asked for, and I'm kind of waiting to hear back and see if they have that information for us available.
And Eileen?
I agree with the fee waiver program, and I think probably a little over 300 people who took advantage of it probably agree with it as well, the businesses and nonprofits. I do think that we have to reevaluate at any time whether it actually is producing the kind of activity that we want to produce. But I think any time that we can lower fees for businesses and individuals and nonprofits to be able to flourish and spend more on what they're doing rather than on, their infrastructure or whatever. I think that we should do that. Now, anything that it created, I think the idea was to create, a good economic result. And it isn't only the fee waivers that have created the good economy here. Certainly, CRADC was instrumental in bringing Banfield pet hospitals here, or the Banfield headquarters, and Camas was also instrumental in expanding other things. The Fisher investments, for instance, and that kind of thing. So, I think it needs to continue to be watched and determine whether in reality it's bringing the kind of result that we want.
No, I think when the county auditor took a look at that, their conclusion was that the waiver did not create many jobs that would not have otherwise been created. Do you think we need more study? Do you disagree with that conclusion?
I think maybe we need more study.
Jennifer?
Yes, I concur that we definitely need some more measurables as far as the fee waiver program. I understand what fee waiver or what fees pay for, impact fees and development fees. So I know that they go back into their respective departments and pay for services rendered. So actually, when I'm traveling around talking to different developers, they're telling me that they would prefer to pay the fee and have a well-staffed, efficient department with which to get permits and inspections and move their projects forward. So while I support, potentially lowering fees, we need to take another look at that program because, as you say, Greg, there was an audit and there was determined, that potentially these businesses would have come through either way.
Let's talk a little bit about the county council and the makeup of the county council. And we'll start with you, Jennifer. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that right now, essentially, the council is set up as a 3-2 vote with Councilors Medora and Milky almost exclusively voting in the minority. Milky is obviously retiring. Somebody's going to fill his seat. Two-part question. Where do you think you fit in? Do you think you're more going to fit into that minority role with Medora? And what do you think of Medora?
Okay. That's a loaded question. As far as how do I fit in, I think I'm going to be representing District 4 extremely well because of my connections, my relationships with all the different cities in my district. I've been working with them for many, many years, elected officials and as well as citizens. This is a new district. District 4 has just come about this year with the implementation of the charter. So as far as working with Mr. Medora, I don't have a problem working with Mr. Medora. Sometimes I understand where he's coming from, and I appreciate his passion. However, we disagree on leadership style and how to best serve our districts, and I'll leave it at that.
Well, actually, we won't leave it at that.
Okay.
So, how do you think Medora has done for this county?
I think that Mr. Medora went into the office with good intentions, and I think we all did believe that. But over the past few years, and I can say this because I've been on the council long enough, and through his representation of our district, which is Camas Washougal, he used to be our county commissioner, and we rarely saw Mr. Medora, or Commissioner Medora, out in Camas and Washougal. We did not have, I would say, we did not have a great relationship with him, and so.
I'm sorry, let me follow up really quick with her. Do you have any examples of a policy issue where you do agree with David Medora?
Not off the top of my head. I mean, I would have to say a biggie would be light rail. We both disagree that Vancouver needs light rail.
Okay.
That's just a basic one, but I don't know if that's necessarily a policy that would.
No.
Okay.
And I get the way that you answered the question that you're going to represent your district. It didn't really answer my question, which was, generally speaking, do you think you're going to fit in to the minority role that Milky filled or the majority role?
I see myself as collaborating with my colleagues a lot more than I see Mr. Milky collaborating with the other three.
Majority role?
Probably so.
Okay. Same question.
Same question.
Yeah, everybody gets the fun.
Yeah.
This one.
Oh, of course.
So, you think you fit in the minority role or majority role, and what do you think of Medora?
First of all, I probably will fit into the minority role because I spoke to Tom Milky before he decided not whether he was going to run or not. I think it's respectful to to actually go to the office holder and ask them, are you going to retire? And if you are, you know, what are your thoughts? And I think that we agree philosophically. I believe that that district, and you know it, I think you all know what the district is made up of. It is the most conservative district in the county. It will be an absolute joy for me to be able to represent them because I am conservative and unabashedly conservative. And so I look forward to doing that. However, having said that, my caucus, when I was in the Republican majority, elected me as their majority whip. I know how to get along with people. A majority whip has to make sure the votes are there. So those people who said that they were going to vote on a particular issue, if they change their mind beforehand, I, as the majority whip, have to go and persuade them to change their vote back so that we can carry this forward like we planned on the floor. So, you know, you're elected to that position. You are not appointed to that position. So my colleagues felt strongly enough that I had the temperament to be able to be that majority whip and bring about those votes. So having said that, I will proudly be representing the 4th district and probably very similarly philosophically to Tom Milkey. I still can work with people, and I hope to work with my colleagues on the council.
And what do you think of Medora?
Well, I do agree. Because I'm conservative, there are many things that I agree with what he said. I've just answered the fee waiver question. And I do think that since he's been in office, you know, if you look at the unemployment rate has gone down. I think that his intentions are very good. You know, I don't watch him do his thing, and I don't really necessarily speak with Mr. Medora that much at all. So I've seen various things that have happened, whether it's Facebook or maybe the paper once in a while. But, you know, I do think that for the most part, we probably agree with a lot of things.
Do you think he works well with others?
I think that he asks some questions that are off-putting to others. And because of that, I think they resist a little bit.
So you think it's more their fault than his?
Not always. Not always.
Okay.
Let me follow up with this real quick. Do you have any examples of policy where you would break from Medora, where you disagree with the stance he has taken?
I think, for one thing, I believe that the CREDC actually can benefit Clark County, and I think that he was not for them, you know, doing some of that. Now, you know, they have to kind of prove that they can draw people, but obviously they brought Banfield headquarters here, and those are some employees that are over here now. So it's that kind of thing that I think, you know, I want to work with people. I want Clark County to be a better place. So.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. Roman?
You know, looking at the way the county's made up, I don't necessarily know what votes are going to be coming down the pike. I don't know where we're going to line up. I know that if I were on that board, and it sounds like the assumption is that Councilor Medora would be on there, assuming that I would be the only Democrat on that board, I think I'd like to try to work with everybody. And I think there's a point where you say, okay, I'm going to work with everybody. I want to take what my constituents say in my district, bring it to the council, and then try to get things done that obviously represent my district, because this is the first time that this district has been in place. I don't think there is something saying that this district is guaranteed going to go conservative or liberal or anything. I mean, we haven't voted in this district yet, and I think for me, I've built a lot of goodwill in the community. I think people know that I tend to be pretty task-oriented. I like to get down to work and, you know, make sure that we fill those potholes. I've always said, you know, a storm drain doesn't have a political ideology. It just knows it's got to drain some water, and if that's not happening, we got to fix the problem. And I think that's a pretty reasonable way to go about it. As far as, you know, how I feel about Mr. Medora, I think we just simply differ in our philosophy of government, and I think that you know, that's going to show in the way that some of the votes that I take as we come up. I mean, if it comes down to whether or not we're going to support the ag community and try to help, put those folks in a position to be able to sell their agricultural products here on the west side, yeah, I definitely want to help that. If it comes down to whether or not we're going to try to take light rail off the table or any mass transit projects off the table, then I'm certainly going to vote against that. I mean, I think that's something that's going to be important to serve the community.
I get that this is a new district.
Yep.
But I also get that Milky has been representing essentially that district.
Right.
I get that he's voted in another area. And so I'm assuming you are somewhat of a studier of what the county council has done.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Sure.
You know what they're doing?
Yeah.
Okay, good. You probably have seen a lot of 3-2 votes
Right.
on the county council. So the question really is, if you were in that seat
Mm-hmm.
For those votes, and there were probably 100 or so, that all went 3-2, how would you have been voting? Would you have been voting in the minority with Medora, or would you have been voting with the majority in those 3-2 votes?
I think in some ways, I think I probably would be in the majority. I think there's some changes that were made. I know that for some folks it was pretty jarring to see the new council come in and make some changes that maybe they were overriding from the previous commission. I kind of believe in this idea of change management. I think that if you go in and you do make a change, it can't be so precipitous. I think we kind of have to look at things over time so that we're not shocking the culture of the organization or the community or the way that board is going to function and kind of building that bad will. I think we have to kind of, you may not have those ideologies that line up with other folks on that council, but I think you need to figure out a way to work together, because that's what we're being tasked to do as county councilors. We're being tasked to be good stewards of the taxpayer dollar. We're being tasked to make sure that this organization is going to function properly for the community with that taxpayer dollar. And I think, even though you may have those disagreements, you kind of have to find some common ground and make sure that we're doing the right things. Yeah.
And now to follow up on that,
Sure.
do you have any examples where you wouldn't have gone with the majority, these specific votes?
I think overall that first meeting where there was a number of things they overturned just right off the bat, I probably would have broke from that and said, okay, let's take a step back, maybe go into some work sessions, see if we can kind of work through some of these things before we just chop them off at the knees. I think that a lot of folks kind of saw that, and that kind of created that little bit of a division, I think, overall from folks who attend those meetings and they're on the council as well, and it didn't kind of set a good stage. And I think that's primarily why I think it's important that we kind of look at the task at hand and not focus on somebody's ideological views. I think we can find a place and a way to work together. Yeah.
How about the Growth Management Act? How would you describe the last year or so of the council's actions on growth management? How would it be different under your leadership?
Sure. I think with regard to the Growth Management Act, under my leadership, a vote that I would have on that, I would have definitely tried to stay within the framework that I think the Planning Commission came up with and some recommendations of the staff. We do have some very intelligent people that work for the county, and I think they do a good job at what they do. And I think under County Manager McCauley's lead, they've done a good job with a lot of these reports. I don't think that I think it put us down to the wire a bit, going back through and trying to find out if Alternative 4 is going to be something that can be pushed through. We've spent some time and money on that, where we could have been putting that into improving the plan that we do have, because there's some votes that were taken recently that I think the county took that kind of went against what the Planning Commission wanted to do, and I think that we could have looked had a little bit more time to work on those things and kind of flesh out some of those details. Yeah.
I was one on the Planning Commission that was against the newest 2016 comprehensive plan. I see that plan as dissing, in many ways, the rural folks of District 4, for the most part, actually. These people, these property owners in the rural area have been talking about this since 1994. I think there are historical things that when you learn them, you find out they were actually, from the very beginning, there were some things that were wrong with this plan. What was done to try to improve that was done collaboratively, not within the council and not necessarily with the planning staff, because my understanding is the planning staff wasn't all that amenable to do some of these things. So whether they thought it wasn't going to be something that was legal or worth their time or too much effort. I don't know. What I do know is, knowing the staff as I do from the Planning Commission, they're very intelligent and know most of them know what they're doing, and are, they can explain their actions. When the 2016 plan came about, we had 2 3-ring notebooks as we were getting our work. Actually, they weren't 2 of them. They came in pieces. They were about a number 10 font of things that were being changed in this 2016 plan, and we had to rush through this as the Planning Commission. Well, every planning commissioner that I know, well, maybe save one, has a full-time job. They work. And we're supposed to do this on 2 evenings a month with work sessions and be able to understand all the history. We were being told there's really nothing new in there. Well, there were some other things. There were things that were new in there. There were things in there that were actually not voted on, were not actually passed, either by the Planning Commission earlier or the council or commissioners prior to that. And 2 of those things were the Living Healthier, I think it was Growing Healthier, and Aging Readiness Plan. Task forces built these plans from people in the community, and they were good plans. It's not that the information that came from these plans were not good. It's that I do not believe they belong in the comprehensive plan. I am familiar enough with policymaking and lawmaking that knowing when you put the word encourage into a written document that becomes something that's part of a plan, a comprehensive plan, that word over time will easily change to shall or must. And these are the things that I really believe in. For instance, the aging readiness, it really was good, but some of the universal design, that they're encouraging builders to do this. Well, builders know that. Builders know that, they know supply and demand, and when you start dictating the kind of house that needs to be built, the costs go up. And we already have an affordable housing issue. So why add to that by adding more regulation? Like I said, it said encourage, but over time that can change. And that was my issue with those 2 things that actually found themselves in the comprehensive plan. And finally, as I said before, the rural owners in the last plan, although there were some alternatives and some division of those properties, what was placed with those were clustering options, which were completely onerous. And it talked about resource lands, which is a whole nother, I could go into the weeds with this a little bit, but, a lot of these lands are not, resource lands are supposed to be determined on soil type, and these lands are not determined on soil type. So it was a quagmire. I really felt that you should step back from it. I talked to the Department of Commerce about the idea that what if the county waits? What if we don't turn it in by June 30th? Will that work? Well, what that means is you don't get some grants. Some state grants and funding from the state. So the question was asked, what things are in the works? I didn't want to hurt Battleground. I knew that Battleground had 2 projects that were already, within the Department of Engineering, or the, not department,
We probably need to wrap this particular answer up.
Okay.
So,
Anyway, okay, so.
thank you.
So in summary, that was kind of a failure of the planning staff in your view. Or was that an issue of circumstance?
You know what? I think it was actually an issue of, it was a human issue between what people thought of other people. And I'm sorry, but that should not take place in the council.
What does that mean?
Between, what that means is people resent, perhaps the planners resented being asked to do these things and therefore dug their heels in, and vice versa. I mean, I think it was an issue of people not believing where this plan came from, thinking it was completely compiled by David Medore, which it was not. So,
Well,
so
it
that-
also wasn't compiled completely by the planning commission.
No,
There
it
was some
wasn't.
other guy out in the middle of no place
No,
who came up with this. little-
Actually, no, it was some real actual people that
Yeah,
did it, and I can.
Yeah, who was that actually?
No,
person?
no, not just person.
Yeah,
It was
who-
persons,
yeah, who were-
and I think some of them want to remain
Anonymous?
anonymous.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Is that good for government if we have anonymous people making growth management
You know,
plans
actually,
that are gonna
I'm
last
not
for
sure
20
that they
years?
want to. I'm not actually sure that they want to remain anonymous. All I know is that there were people who know water engineering.
But is that good
And
for,
that have done
Is that
this.
the way the county should run? That anonymous
No,
people do this?
I don't think so. My point was, it was not one person who didn't have a background in what he was trying to bring forward, who built this plan. It was other people who have backgrounds in this whole thing, and it
But
was
want
not
to remain
accepted. I don't know. Maybe this planning commission staff knew. I don't know. I'm not privy to that information. What I learned from a Clark County Citizens United person was that it wasn't just David Medore, that they had worked with other people to create some sort of plan that would work for both cities. And by the way, cities got exactly what they were asking for in that original alternative form
Okay,
plan.
and thank you. We should move on. Jennifer, your thoughts on the growth management?
Well, first, I would like to speak up in defense of the Clark County staff. I think that they were blindsided by Alternative 4, and I'm not sure that they had adequate time to even get their minds around it either. The current comp plan that was passed recently, I think, is a good compromise. I was encouraged to see the reductions in the minimum lot sizes. Ag 20 to 10, forest 40 to 20, and rural residential 20 to 10. I was very encouraged to see the city's requests for their urban growth boundary expansions included as well. I also actually disagree with my colleague. I think the clustering of parcels is actually a very good compromise and effective option for our resource lands, and it gives homeowners a way to use their property where they didn't have before. So that's the way I feel.
We'll move on. Another big issue is the I-5 bridge and/or a third bridge. What would be your preference in which direction we should go if it were solely up to you? We'll start with that.
I would make the I-5 bridge sustainable without light rail, and have
So a new
one
bridge or just
more,
improve the
any number. We have at least 8 bridges in downtown Portland over the Willamette River. I think that we should be able to expand our bridges, and hopefully we can work with the other state to bring that about.
What's the first project?
I don't know. The people would have to decide. I mean, there would have to be a decision by the council or by the state.
Yeah, but don't you think you should lead? I mean,
I would say either the west side or the east side,
Okay.
either one.
Well, which one if you had to pick?
I'm more familiar with the east side.
So you would pick the east side.
I would.
And you said that sustainable I-5, does that mean?
Well, it was originally, I think it was originally 2 lanes, and now they've restriped it to be 3 lanes. It could be that it was restriped to 2 lanes. It would be more sustainable. I don't mean that there should be. It actually is structurally sound, from my understanding and from the testing.
So you don't think
So-
that it should be replaced?
No, I don't.
And talk a little bit about light rail. Should it be light? Oh, I guess it wouldn't be light rail ready because we're not doing anything to the bridge.
Absolutely not.
So-
We do not need light rail. It is a highly subsidized
Ever?
thing. No, we don't. Unless we become a metropolis like Singapore or Washington, D.C., or Boston, Massachusetts. It is not necessary in a county like ours. Buses are much more efficient. You can change the route when people move around. What they did in Portland, they pulled up the trolley tracks and then put down light rail tracks. It's highly subsidized, usually has very, very few new riders for instance, from a bus. Most people that get onto a light rail were on a bus before.
So would you have supported BRT then?
No, I don't support BRT.
Just bus, no.
Bus, because you can also change that route too. And, BRT may not be where the buses should run.
Yes, can you repeat the question?
What are your thoughts on transportation? What should be the priority? I-5 bridge, light rail,
Okay.
third bridge somewhere?
Well, I actually support the bi-state bipartisan talks that were recently started again as far as replacement of the bridge. I think, however, that the bridge this time around needs to be higher to accommodate all of the freight traffic floating down the river, as well as wider. Potentially looking at a west side bridge for truck traffic to get it off the bridge as well. But I do not support light rail into Vancouver. This is where I agree with my colleague here. I do not think that Vancouver is the metropolis that's
Well, what's first? Somebody's got a point at something. Because you talked about a west side bridge too.
I did.
What's first?
I think the
or
west side bridge should be built first, so we can work on the I-5 bridge, because we have to have an additional way across to divert traffic.
Hey, Roman?
Yeah, I support I-5, the I-5 bridge replacement. I supported it back in 2012. I think if light rail can be done affordably, it should be included with that bridge. We actually had a federal subsidy that would have paid for that entire project last time. And if that's an option this time, great. In terms of the bridge being safe and sound, I do disagree. I don't think it's safe nor sound. I think if you've gotten onto any of those interchanges, if you've come north on I-5 and you try to get off and take that Camas exit, you pretty much have to be a race car driver to get around that corner. And I think that taking that bridge down to a 2-lane bridge when you have a multi-lane highway, I mean, it's already bottlenecked as it is, I think, right now when you're coming north on I-5. I sat in that traffic from 2012 to 2015 every day, and if I could have gotten across that bridge a little bit faster, I absolutely would have. The problem is, I think a lot of ways we fixate on just the bridge itself, and I know that when the Corps of Engineers did their evaluation, they said we couldn't go any higher with it because we have traffic from the airport as well. And I think with this particular bridge, they're talking about it improving not only just the bridge, but 5 miles of interchanges as well. I mean, that's a lot of efficiency gain, I think, for our transportation here. When we talk about ways to bring business into Clark County, it's not conducive to doing that for some of these larger manufacturers or companies that rely on freight coming up via truck if they're going to have to sit in traffic, hours on end to get their stuff here, especially if they're running like a just-in-time manufacturing type system. So I think in a lot of ways we need to really focus on getting this bridge done. I don't think there's any other options at this point.
So that would be your preference before a third bridge?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I really don't know where we would put the third bridge. I've heard some ideas floated for the east side of town, but I mean, I live out there. That process of the environmental impact would be just, I think it would be overwhelming, because you're talking about going through wetlands on the Oregon side, and when you dump cars from there, where are you putting them? You'd be sticking them on the Banfield, and that's no better in the morning going west than it is, being on Highway 14 or trying to get over I-5. So I think we really need to focus on trying to make this our main corridor. Really, this is the last drawbridge on a major international or interstate highway here in the country, so I think that needs to be updated.
So a new I-5 bridge, would it have light rail?
If we were able to kind of work through the Federal Transportation Commission, I think, to get some of those dollars in and maybe look at getting that subsidy, yeah. If not, I think we look at potentially putting in the infrastructure for adding that later. I mean, we do have pretty solid population growth here in Clark County. I mean, we're seeing it with our housing, we're seeing it with our business growth, and I think that eventually we are going to reach that point where we kind of need to plan ahead one way or the other.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I think we'll move on now. Give us your final pitch for why voters should be.
I just
Oh,
had a
Joe,
couple
yes.
follow-up
Hi.
questions. In 2012, what did you run for, just as a refresher?
Oh, yeah, I ran for county commission. Yeah.
Okay.
So I ran in District 2 at the
Okay.
time. Yeah.
And then Eileen, you said something that you would do, and that would be to beef up public safety. What, can you just really quickly tell us what you
Well,
mean by that?
deputies, hiring the deputies, and I know it's been very difficult for the hiring process, both finding eligible people and then putting them through the academy. And I understand that they've opened up some spaces in the academy for them to actually go. But they've reduced deputies in some crucial areas. They don't go now to different calls where there's not an injury, and they've taken some, at least I think 2 deputies from the child abuse section, and other places. And so I just think that we should, that's one of our key things that the county should do is provide for safety. So it's really to increase those deputies and bring it back to the number that it was, I think, maybe even in 2012. I could be wrong with that number, but
So is there a number
prior
that
to
you're
2012.
thinking?
No. I would have to look at my notes and talking with the sheriff. I did have a conversation with him about that, but I can't give you the number. Sorry.
Now we'll move ahead. Give us your final pitch, why voters should support you, and please mention any notable endorsements you would like to share, and we'll start with Jennifer.
Great, thank you. I bring my many years of municipal government experience and my ability to collaborate and work with my colleagues to get things done. I think it's important to build and maintain positive relationships with cities and other organizations within Clark County, and I plan on doing just that when I'm elected. I believe that government works for the citizens, and I'm ready to work hard to represent the citizens of District 4. My notable endorsements are Senator Ann Rivers, Representative Brandon Vick, Representative Linda Wilson, all of the mayors in my district who are endorsing, including Camas Mayor Higgins, Washougal Mayor Guard, and Yakult Mayor Carruthers, Ridgefield Mayor Ron Onslow, Connecting Clark County, Republicans of Clark County, and many other elected officials and business leaders in my community and across Clark County, both Republicans and Democrats.
Great, thank you. Eileen?
I think I bring to the table experience of policy, good policy making, some experience in history and some of the ideas that are brought forward in Clark County. One of the hallmarks of what I want to do and have done in my public life is to represent the people, to listen to the people, and listen actually to all sides. You have to know what the unintended consequences of many of the policies that come forward to you. So I would work to do that, to hear all sides of the issue before actually making a decision. And again, I say that I am endorsed by Tom Milkey. I talked to him, prior to running for office, and he's held this seat, and he's been a good representative at the state as well. I'm endorsed by Liz Pike, and I'm endorsed by former Washougal Council member Connie Jo Freeman. And I guess what we will see is whether I'm endorsed by the people of District 4 once we have the election. I've always thought that it was really more important to have the endorsement of the people that vote for you and those that you represent. Now, my colleague, many of them she will represent if she is elected to this particular position. But I hope to bring experience and temperament and the ability to.
You're also endorsed by Councilor Door, right?
Yes, I am. Actually, he did endorse me. Yes.
That's what I thought too.
Mm-hmm. He can't vote for me though. I'm talking about the ones that can actually vote for me.
Thank you. And Roman?
I guess for me, I look forward to being able to have a voice in that council to kind of help us steer away from and be less adversarial. And I think that goes from, sometimes the way that we handle the top levels of our government, even some of the ways we deal with citizens. I'll give you a great example. I found a couple weeks ago, or actually this is a couple months ago, but I had some garlic mustard. and it was in my yard, and I was going to call the county and say, hey, I found this, but I actually stopped because a few years ago I took the watershed stewardship program they do up at Heritage Farm, and I found some, and I sent it to the gal who administrates it, and I said, hey, I found this garlic mustard, send it on the county, because I like to track invasive species and make sure that we're keeping them out of the community. So can you send this along? I'm going to take care of it this weekend and get this taken care of. The next day there was a pamphlet stuffed in my door that says you have 30 days to get rid of this garlic mustard or we're going to fine you. Basically. And so it was like, wait a minute, I kind of put the brakes on there. I said, wait, I'm trying to do something good here, but now I'm kind of in trouble for it. I've had this punitive measure taken against me. So I think what I'd like to see is a more human element brought back to local government. I think that's really the point. Getting out into the community, talking to people, making sure that their voice is going to be heard. And when we do get to this council, kind of making an effort to get back out to our districts. Some of my notable endorsements for me that I believe is there's a guy in Washougal, his name's John Walcott. He's a paramedic. His wife is a nurse. They just recently were married. He has 2 children. That's notable for me, I think. Claudia Bossman, she was a bank manager there. She did banking for years with people there and in the community, and now she volunteers her time gathering up food from stores. When they scratch or dent the cans, she'll take it and give it to local food shelters. I mean, Brian Carell, he's a small business owner. Those are really the people that I think we need to be listening to. This whole charter was put into place so that the representation can be closer to the community, and that's absolutely the thing that I'm committed to doing. And I think if folks are looking for reasonable, rational, and just this idea of having leaders that are going to listen to them and make objective decisions, I'm going to be that person that's going to do that for them, and I really do hope to have their votes. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to all of you. Thanks.